One day they got word that the mohole town Hephaestus, west of Elysium, had been entirely deserted. Radio contact had stopped, and when people went down from Elysium to look, they found the town empty. All Elysium was in an uproar, and Frank and Maya decided to see if they could do something in person. They took the train down to Tharsis together, back down into the thickening air, and across the rocky plains, now piebald with snowdrifts that never melted, with snow that was a dirty, granular pink, conforming tightly to the north slope of every dune and rock, like colored shadows. And then onto the glistening, crazed black plains of Isidis, where the permafrost melted on the warmest summer days, and then refroze in a bright black craquelure, a tundra in the making, maybe even a marsh. Flying by the train windows were tufts of black grass, perhaps even Arctic flowers, or maybe it was just litter. Burroughs was quiet and uneasy. The broad, grassy boulevards empty. Their green as shocking as hallucination, or an after-image of looking into the sun. Their broad, grassy boulevards empty. Their green as shocking as hallucination, or an after-image of looking into the sun. While waiting for the train to Elysium, Frank went to the station's storage room and reclaimed the contents of his Burroughs room, which he had left behind. The attendant returned with a single large box containing a bachelor's kitchen equipment, a lamp, some jumpers, and a lectern. He didn't remember any of it. He put the lectern in his pocket and tossed the rest of it in the trash. In a trash dumper. Wasted years. He couldn't remember a day of them. The treaty negotiation, now revealed as pure theater. As if someone had kicked a backstage strut and brought down the whole backdrop, revealing real history on the back steps. Two men exchanging a handshake and a nod. The Russian office in Burroughs wanted Maya to stay and deal with some business there. And so Frank took a train on to Elysium by himself. I don't think you missed too much, really. Just a lot of Frank and Maya having sex and feeling like leaders of the free world. Patting themselves on the back. And now they're on a train to somewhere else to do more of that. We just started, basically. So Frank took a train on to Elysium by himself, and then joined a rover caravan out to Hephaestus. The people in his car were subdued by his presence, and irritably he ignored them and glanced through his old lectern. A standard selection, for the most part. A great book series, only slightly augmented by some political philosophy packages. 100,000 volumes. Lecterns today beat that 100-fold. Although it was a pointless improvement, as there was no longer time to read even a single book. He had been fond of Nietzsche in those days, apparently. About half the marked passages were from him, and glancing through them, Frank couldn't see why. It was all windy drivel. And then he read one that made him shudder. The individual is, in his future and his past, a piece of fate. One law more, one necessity more for everything that is and everything that will be. To say to him, change yourself, means to demand that everything should change, even in the past. In Hephaestus, a new mole crew was settling in. Old-timers for the most part, tech and engineering types, but much more sophisticated than the newcomers on Pavonis. Frank talked with quite a few of them, asking about those who had disappeared. And one morning at breakfast, next to a window that looked out on the mole's solid white thermal plume, an American woman who reminded him of Ursula said, "These people have seen the videos all their life and organized their lives around getting here. They work for years and save, and then sell everything they have to get passage, because they have an idea of what it will be like. And then they get here, and they're incarcerated. Or at best, back in the old rut. In indoor jobs. So it's all just like it's still on TV. And so they disappear. Because they're looking for more of the kind of thing that they came here for. But they don't know how the disappeared live," Chalmers objected, "or even if they survived at all." The woman shook her head. "Word gets around. People come back. There are one-play videos that show up occasionally." The people around her nodded. "And we can see what's coming up from Earth after us. Best to get into the country while the chance is still there." Frank shook his head, amazed. It was the same thing the bench presser in the mining camp had been saying. But coming from this calm, middle-aged woman, it was somehow more disturbing. That night, unable to sleep, he put out a call for Arkady and got him half an hour later. Arkady was on Olympus Mons, of all places, up at the observatory. "What do you want?" Frank said. "What do you imagine will happen if everyone here slips away into the highlands?" Arkady grinned. "Why, then we will make a human life, Frank. We will work to support our needs, and do science, and perhaps terraform a bit more. We will sing and dance and walk around in the sun and work like maniacs for our food and curiosity." "It's impossible," Frank exclaimed. "We're part of the world. We can't escape it." "Can't we? It's only the blue evening star, the world you speak of. This red world is the only real one for us now." Frank gave up, exasperated. He had never been able to talk to Arkady. Never. With John, it had been different. But then, he and John had been friends. Oh, why did I kill John? What was it all for in the end? This isn't what I killed John for. He trained back to Elysium. I can tell Laurie is invested in John. Okay, well, I literally can't tell when you guys are joking, and I'm afraid that's let some jokes go on too long. Can you tell Frank is invested in John? And actually, I'm invested in Arcady, but maybe you're joking, and I didn't even need to explain it. Okay. He trained back to Elysium. The Elysium Massif rose over the horizon like an enormous saddle dropped on the desert. The steep slopes of the two volcanoes were pinkish white now, deep in snows that had packed down to fern and would become glaciers before too long. He had always thought of the Elysium cities as a counterweight to Tharsis. Older, smaller, more manageable and sane. But now people there were disappearing by the hundreds. It was a jump-off point into the unknown nation, hidden out there in the cratered wilderness. In Elysium, they asked him to give a speech to a group of American newcomers on the first evening of their orientation. Thank you. In Elysium, they asked him to give a speech to a group of American newcomers on the first evening of their orientation. A formal speech, but there was an informal gathering before, and Frank wandered around asking questions as usual. "Of course we'll get out if we can," one man said to him boldly. Others chipped in immediately. "They told us not to come here if we wanted to get outdoors so much. It's not like that on Mars," they said. "Who do they think they're fooling? We can see the video you sent back as well as they can. Hell, every other article you read is about the Mars underground, how they're communists or nudists or Rosicrucians, utopians or caravans or cave-dwelling primitives, Amazons or llamas or cowboys. What it is everyone's projecting their fantasies out here because it's so bad back there. Do you understand? Maybe there's a single, coordinated counterworld. That's another big fantasy. The totalizing fantasy. The true masters of the planet, why not? Hidden away, maybe led by your friend Hiroko. Maybe in contact with your friend Arcady. Maybe not. Who knows? No one knows for sure. Not on Earth, they don't. It's all stories. It's the best story going right now, and millions of people on Earth are into it. They're addicted to it. A lot of them want to come, and only a few of us get to. And a good percentage of those who get chosen went through the whole selection process lying through our teeth to get here. Yes, Frank interjected gloomily. We all did that. It reminded him of Michelle's old joke, since they were all going to go crazy anyway. Well, there you are. What did you expect? I don't know. He shook his head unhappily. But it's all fantasy. Do you understand? The need to stay hidden would hamper any community in a crippling way. It's all stories when you get right down to it. Then where are all the disappeared going? Frank shrugged uneasily, and they grinned. An hour later, he was still thinking about it. Everyone had moved out into an open-air amphitheater. Built from fixed salt blocks in classical Greek style. The semicircle of rising white benches was filled with bodies topped by attentive faces, waiting for his speech, curious to see what one of the first 100 would say to them. He was a relic of the past, a character out of history. He had been on Mars 10 years before some of the people in the audience were born. And his memories of Earth were of their grandparents' time, on the other side of a vast and shadowy chasm of years. The classical Greeks had certainly gotten the size and proportions right for a single orator. He hardly had to raise his voice, and they all heard him. He told them some of the usual things. His standard address, all chopped and censored as it was sadly tattered by current events. It didn't sound very coherent, even to him. "Look," he said, desperately revising as he spoke, ad-libbing, searching through the faces into the crowd. "When we came up here, we came to a different place, to a new world. And that necessarily," oh my God, is this John's speech? And when we came up here, we came to a different place, to a new world. And that necessarily makes us different beings than we were before. None of the old directives from Earth matter. Inevitably, we will make a new Martian society, just in the nature of things. It comes out of the decisions we make together, by our collective action. And they are decisions that we are making in our time, in these years, right now, at this very instant. But if you dodge into the outback and join one of the hidden colonies, you isolate yourself. You remain whatever you were when you came, never metamorphosizing into the Martian human. And you also deprived the rest of us of your expertise and your input. I know this personally, believe me. Pain lanced through him. He was astonished to feel it. As you know, some of the first 100 were the first to disappear. Presumably, under the leadership of Hiroko Ai. I still don't understand why they did it. I really don't. But how we have missed her genius for systems design in the years since, I can hardly tell you. Why, I think you can accurately say that part of our problems now result from her absence these many years. He shook his head, trying to gather his thoughts. The first time I saw this canyon we're in, I was with her. It was one of the first explorations to this area, and I had Hiroko Ai by my side. And we looked down into this canyon, its floor bare and flat. And she said to me, "It's like the floor of a room." He stared at the audience, trying to remember Hiroko's face. Yes. No. Strange how one remembered faces until you tried to look at them in your mind. When they turned away from you. I've missed her. I come here, and it's impossible to believe that this is the same place. And so, it's hard to believe I ever really knew her. He paused, tried to focus on their faces. Do you understand? No! Someone bellowed. A flicker of his old anger boiled through his confusion. I'm saying we have to make a new Mars here. I'm saying we're completely new beings, goddammit. That nothing is the same here. Nothing is the same. He had to give up. Go sit down. Other speakers took over, and their droning voices floated over him as he sat, stunned, looking out the open end of the amphitheater into a park of wide-set sycamore trees. Slender white buildings beyond. Trees growing on their roofs and balconies. A green-white vision. No, Emmerich. It's Frank. He's losing it. And it's fucking hilarious and sad. Much like real life. A green and white vision. He couldn't tell them. No one could tell them. Only time and Mars itself. And in the meantime, they would act in obvious contradiction to their own best interests. It happened all the time. But how could it? How? Why were people so stupid? He left the amphitheater, stalked through the park and the town. How can people act against their own obvious material interests? He demanded of Susinski over his wristpad. It's crazy. Marxists were materialists. How did they explain it? Ideology, sir. But if the material world and our method of manipulating it determine everything else, how can ideology happen? Where did they say it comes from? Some of them defined ideology as an imaginary relationship to a real situation. They acknowledged that imagination was a powerful force in human life. But then they weren't materialists at all. He swore with disgust. No wonder Marxism is dead. Well, sir, actually, a lot of people on Mars call themselves Marxists. Shit, they might as well call themselves Zoroastrians, or Jansenists, or Hegelians. Marxists are Hegelian, sir. Shut up, Frank snarled, and broke the connection. Imaginary beings. Imaginary beings in a real landscape. No wonder he had forgotten the carrot and the stick and wandered off into the realm of new being and radical difference and all that crap, trying to be John Boone. Yes, it was true. He was trying to do what John had done. But John had been good at it. Frank had seen him work his magic time after time in the old days. changing everything just by the way he talked. While for Frank, the words were like rocks in his mouth. Even now, when it was just what they needed. Five more pages. Maya met him at the Burroughs station, gave him a hug. He endured it stiffly, his bags hanging from his hand. Outside the tent, low chocolate thunderheads billowed in a mauve sky. He couldn't meet her eye. "You were wonderful," she said. "Everyone is talking about it." For an hour. After which, the emigrants would disappear as before. It was a world of acts, and words had no more influence on acts than the sound of a waterfall does on the flow of the stream. He hurried off to the Mesa offices. Maya came along and chattered at him as he checked into one of the yellow-walled rooms on the 4th floor. Bamboo furniture, flowery sheets, and couch cushions. Maya was full of plans, cheery, pleased with him. She was pleased with him. He crushed his teeth together until they hurt. Bruxism was giving him headaches and all kinds of facial pain, wearing through his crowns and the cartilage in his jaw joints. Wow, that bamboo invaded even Mars. Yeah, indeed. It was actually one of the first, it was literally one of the first construction materials they used. Very useful. And invasive. Bruxism was giving him headaches and all kinds of facial pain, wearing through his crowns and the cartilage in his jaw joints. Finally, he stood and walked to the door. "I have to go for a walk," he said. As he left, he saw her face in his peripheral vision. Hurt surprise, as usual. He walked quickly down to the sward and paced off the long row of Barris columns. Barris columns? He walked quickly down to the sward and paced off the long row of Barris columns, their disarray like bowling pins caught flying. On the other side of the canal, he sat at a round white table at the edge of a sidewalk cafe and nursed a Greek coffee for an hour. Like Bareiss. Bareiss. Areiss. B. EISS. I know what they mean, though. I hope you guys know what it means. It's like columns. I don't know. Imagine a column, and it'll be close enough. White salt columns, like very Greek, bare-assed, sitting on a sidewalk cafe, around a table made of salt. Whatever your mind pleases, it's all the same. And then imagine it's on Mars. Inside of a bubble dome. Shaped like a triangle. Probably. There's also tube cities and like, I don't know. They're mostly triangles and tubes. Or underground. Like terrariums. Barius. Thank you. That sounds right. And nursed a Greek coffee for an hour. Thank you for that. Suddenly Maya was standing before him. "What do you mean by this?" she said. She gestured at the table, at his annoyed scowl. "What is wrong now?" He stared at his coffee cup, looked up at her, back down to the cup. It was impossible. A sentence was pronouncing itself in his mind, each word equally weighted. "I killed John." "Nothing's wrong," he said. "What do you mean?" The corners of her mouth tightened, making her glare look contemptuous, and her face old. Damn, burn. Chill, bro. The corners of her mouth tightened, making her glare look contemptuous, and her face old. Nearly 80 now. They were too old for this. After a long silence, she sat down across from him. "Look," she said. "I don't care what happened in the past." She stopped speaking, and he risked a glance at her. She was staring down, looking inward. What happened in the Ares, or Underhill, or any of it. His heart beat inside him like a child trying to escape. His lungs were cold. She was still talking, but he hadn't caught it. Did she know? Did she know what he had done in Nicosia? It was impossible. Or she would not have been here. Would she? But she ought to have known. Like, I have to pee so bad, but this is it's like literally like a fucking climax, like the moment we're all waiting for. Does she know? I almost had that thought, and I'm like, there's no way she knows. And then I'm like, but then she wouldn't be here, would she? So if she knows and she's here, or if she knows, I don't know. I feel like she might suspect. When John was in the hospital being pronounced dead, and Frank was there, and they were like in the waiting room together after the fucking party. She's like, "Well, you never liked him anyway." I felt like she knew. See, that's like, I felt like she knew in part one. Like in part one when she's like, "You never liked him anyway, huh?" But she seemed sad. And she's like, "Well, you never liked him anyway," because Frank's like a dick about it. And that's like, I thought maybe she knows, but then the fact that she like got with Frank later, I was like, oh, there's no way she knows, because she liked John too. Wow. Okay, we'll find out as soon as I return from the bathroom. Do-do-do-do-do-do, waiting music.